Hello there. I am, as you know, if you have watched at least one video on this channel, Robert McKay. Always have been, always will be. I don't identify as Robert McKay. I am Robert McKay. The channel, of course, is, as you saw, Whiskey for Beginners. I'm trying with the channel to provide information for people who are new to whiskey who can't find it all in one place anywhere else. I couldn't when I was starting out in the fall of 2021. Now this video is part of the Sippin and Talkin playlist, and so it isn't as specifically focused on whiskey as those in my Whiskey Reviews playlist or the Whiskey Basics playlist. And if you're new to whiskey, go and look at that Whiskey Basics. I recently, not intentionally, but re-recorded every single one of, I believe it's 36 videos. So you could watch one a day and cover more than a month with basic information about whiskey. Tonight, though, being Sippin' and Talkin', it's not going to be quite so specifically whiskey. Now, what am I sipping on? This puppy. What do they call it? George Dickel Barrel Select. It's a single barrel. Unfortunately, it's only 86 proof. Generally, a single barrel is also going to be barrel proof, or at least higher proof, 100 proof or more. This isn't even 90 proof, but it is. This bottle comes from just one barrel, and however many other bottles from that barrel are a single barrel of that barrel. Single barrel is one of the terms you'll find on labels that means what it means. This is Tennessee whiskey, which I consider a form of bourbon. It meets every legal requirement for being bourbon, with just one extra point, which is not fundamentally different from the finishing that bourbons sometimes go through. But that's not a big deal. I have not reviewed this. In fact, this is only going to be my second glass of it, but it's what was up next in the rotation, and the next glass will be the review. Well, I may have to adjust the phone back, but I need to be able to see what I'm pouring, how much of it. And you saw the thoroughly amateur bit, and I forgot to adjust this before I started. And I put the bottle on what I call, scooch over, the platform, so that the label is within view of the lens. And this bottle is so squat that it's not going to be entirely there. And I'm recording on my phone. But what I want to talk about while I'm sipping on this whiskey, smells pretty good. At that low proof, it doesn't have the force, isn't quite the right word. It's more attenuated than Dickel whiskey generally is. You get the white label, the superior recipe, it's 90 proof. You get the bottled in bond, of course that's by law 100 proof. If I remember correctly, and I've only had the one bottle, and this was about 4 years ago, I think that the classic recipe, the black label, is 80 proof but it might be 90. I don't remember. But at 86 proof, there is a nose, but it's a thin one. It's a shy nose. It's not just standing up there and letting you smell it. What I want to talk about, though, is how people talk. Back in, I believe it was medieval times. Yeah, medieval times. Over a period of several hundred years, the English language went through what the linguists call the great vowel shift. The sound of the vowels changed radically, at least in some cases. That's one of the reasons why English spelling doesn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. When the monks first adapted the Latin alphabet to spell English, they took the letters of that alphabet and matched them to the sounds. The sounds changed. The letters didn't. And so you have words that don't look at all like you would expect them to. The sound of the word has changed so much that the spelling is way out of date. Really, all I'm getting on that is a little nuttiness and some honey. If I had to specify on the nuts, I'd say hazelnuts, but I would not want to have to specify. Well, there was the great vowel shift, and as I say, that took place over a span of a few hundred years. Now, I'm going to be 66 in April. I come to Albuquerque in 1997 when I was 37, so this is our 29th year here. And in that span of not quite 30 years, the way people talk has changed very dramatically. Right now it's February. I'm recording this. It's 12:40 in the morning of February 7th, if I'm remembering the dates right. And being February, it's winter. Everybody today says winter. It used to be you never heard that. When I came to Albuquerque, the only time you heard that emphasis on the T was if somebody had a Spanish accent where he'd talk about, it's not winter, something like that. I speak Spanish. Hablo español con acento chicano. I speak Spanish with a Chicano accent, but when I try to speak English the same way, it doesn't come out right. It sounds more like a cartoon Mexican, and that's not my intent. But somebody talking like that would say winter. But in English, everybody used to say winter. And the only one, when I came to Albuquerque, not quite 30 years ago, within a lot of people's lifetimes, the only person I had ever heard say winter was Hawkeye Pierce on MASH. Alan Alda is the actor. Same with hunter and printer. It was hunter and printer. And now everybody says hunter, printer. Almost like a machine trying to speak English. It used to be that nobody ever talked about the city in Georgia as Atlanta. It was Atlanta. A relaxed pronunciation, Atlanta. But now even Southerners are calling it Atlanta. Just machine-like. And I don't understand why people do that. And language does change. You know, there was the great vowel shift. I've already mentioned that. And the English we speak today, beginning around 1500, 1600, I think, is when what they call modern English, early modern English, emerged from Middle English. But you go back far enough, you have what they call Old English, which to us is an absolutely foreign language. Old English is as foreign to what I'm speaking today as Dutch or Romanian or Hawaiian. Those are all languages that are totally foreign to modern English, and so is Old English. So languages change. As I said, hablo un poco de español, con acento chicano también. But Spanish is not the same as the Latin it came from. There was Latin, that had different varieties, and Latin became Portuguese, Spanish, Catalan, Galician, Romanian, French. This is probably the wrong way to pronounce it, but Occitan. Occitan? I don't know. There are any Romanche in Switzerland, Italian. These are all languages which came by Latin changing in different ways in different places. Sicilian is a Romance language, and some might say it's a dialect of Italian. I don't know enough about it to say one way or the other. So languages do change, and trying to stop it is like standing on a beach while the tsunami rolls in and holding up your hand and saying, stop where you are. It ain't going to work. It's going to wash you inland about 3 miles. Let me taste it. I'm just not getting much on the nose. Comes review time, I don't suspect I'm going to give it a glowing one. There was some honey there and some lemon mixed with it. It's almost like eating some honey while you're sucking on a lemon cough drop. Clover honey, it's got that sharper sweetness than the darker honeys do. But people talk differently than they did. They hammer on the consonants like printer instead of printer. And they're doing it with a terminal D. Like, what happened? Well, people will say, what happened? Or I might say there's a glass and a bottle. But people today will say there's a glass and a bottle. Ant? Why are we talking about an ant? It's and, A-N-D, not A-N-T. And, not ant. And a lot of this also has to do with people talking fast. Now, in the South, we have always known that Yankees talk fast. But everybody today, even some Southerners, is talking at warp 9 million. It's like they're afraid if they don't get out 49 words a second, nobody will listen to them. And I'll be honest, I've met some people, I work with a young lady, who talks so fast half the time I can't understand what they're saying. Sometimes I just have to replay it in my mind and pick out what it is. There's a guy I used to work with, he's moved on to some other company now. And he had a Polish accent. That's where he's originally from. And he was adopted as a child, but he lived in Poland long enough that to this day he speaks with a Polish accent. And between that and as fast as he would talk, I don't know how many times I had to tell him to slow down. And everybody's like that now. Everybody's trying to talk so fast. It's like listening to an auctioneer where all you can hear is $1, $2, $2, $2.50, $2, $3. Of course, an auctioneer is doing that deliberately. He's just filling the time while waiting for a bid, and the only thing he's trying to get clearly out is the bid. $1, $1.50, $3, whatever. And when he's the next lot is a stack of china plates, and he's starting his spiel, and you ask him, Colonel, is that choice or won money? When he answers you, it's in normal English. He's not rattling off like that. Except nowadays, who knows? Maybe he does. Talking so fast clips your words off. It turns that D into a T. And, or ant, instead of and. You know, either it's a glass and a bottle, or it's a glass and a bottle. Slow down to a normal speed, maybe you won't be talking about an ant. And what people do to their vowels is inhuman. When I came to Albuquerque, as I say, 29 years ago this summer, you know, if that was honey water, I could understand it being the way it is. It's not the best whiskey I've ever had, I guarantee. Won't be a glowing review unless it really opens up before the next glass. But when I first came to Albuquerque, you would have a sail, S-A-L-E, sail, long A sound. Now, it's a sell. Well, they call it a sells event, which is asinine. It's a sale, but people say sell, S-E-L-L. They've taken the two vowel, or the two words, with two different vowel sounds, and taken the one and changed it into the other. So that now instead of a garage sale, you have a garage sell. Don't ask me why. And there's something else people are doing with their A's, and I can't recollect it. But they're taking E's and turning them into A's. Take Beck. Beck Hansen is his name. He does some interesting music. I don't necessarily think it's all great, but some of it's pretty good. Well, these days, the way people pronounce their E's, because his name is B-E-C-K, Beck, it comes out back. I'm going to go to the Back concert. Back? You know, Beck Hansen. Oh, Beck. They're turning their A's into E's and their E's into A's. They're turning the long E sound into a short I sound. There's the metal steel. You make swords out of steel. I've got a pocket knife here. I feel undressed without a pocket knife. I'm a country boy. The blades are made out of steel. But you talk to people nowadays, they'll say that the sword and the knife are made out of steel. It's steel, not still. And again, these are changes that I have personally witnessed over the past 30 years or even less. Which means that people my age who learn to talk the way I did have deliberately, consciously altered how they speak to fit in with the trend. Which is dumb. If this is how you talk, then talk that way. Don't copy all them other dingbats. I ain't gonna copy nobody else. My mind is just as good as his and maybe better. I don't claim to be the world's greatest genius. Egad, I'm the most mediocre, average intelligence guy you ever saw. I'm probably at the bottom of the middle percentile. I'm not even sure what a percentile is, to be honest with you. I looked it up one time because in school, you know, you take these tests and you're in this percentile or that percentile, but I don't remember what it meant. But who cares how they talk? I learned to talk the way I learned to talk. That's the way I'm going to talk, and if somebody don't like it, he can go jump in the lake. I don't give a single flying flip for his opinion. I'm not a genius, but I ain't a dunce. I'm at least as smart as he is, and my opinion and the way I talk is just as good as his, if not better. As I mentioned 2 or 3 times already, the great vowel shift in the English language took place over several hundred years because it was a natural, organic thing. It wasn't people hearing all the hipsters or what have you talking that way and consciously change the way he talked fit. The reason what I'm talking about has happened in 30 years or less is precisely because it's not natural and it's not organic. It is people who have nothing inside, who are completely facade, who are empty, who have no thoughts and no ideas and no principles of their own, and so they chase after whoever and copy them because they have nothing of their own. If people had something in here and in here, they wouldn't so quickly follow after every fad and every trend. You know, fads come and go. I've seen Western clothes come in and out of fashion several times in my life. Maybe one of these days they'll come back. I can remember a time when men always wore hats. Then for a long time they didn't, and I kept wishing hats would come back. And then when they did, everybody was being stupid and putting their hat on backwards. There's a picture I've seen online. Guy has his hat on backwards, his sunglasses upside down on the bill of the hat, and doing this so he can see in the sun. He has nothing inside. He has no thoughts of his own. He doesn't have the common sense and the self-intelligence to put his hat on frontwards and put his sunglasses on when he's trying to see in the sun. And that's how it is with people talking. And it irritates me. If the language changes naturally, sure. You know, except for me, and I don't even do it hardly at all, nobody's saying groovy anymore. Nobody's saying that's a boss car. Not anymore. I don't even hear people say something's bad anymore, as in, that song is the baddest you ever heard. I say it. Nobody else does anymore. The language has changed. Slang has come and gone naturally and organically, and that's fine. But when people force themselves into a mold of how they talk or dress or do their hair or what have you, just because they're too dumb or too lazy or too empty intellectually and spiritually to have their own ideas as they follow after somebody else, that does irritate me. Not a thing I can do about it. Although I can gripe at you in a video and repeat that this is not the greatest whiskey I've ever had. And on that note, egad, I'm at 24 minutes. I'm going to cut it off. Cheers.